are just now here sitting in Athens, and we came together for a workshop about the lifelong oral history of the European people, which is done for MEMORO and the European Union. And I would like to tell you about my journey to Pakistan to find out about the often questioned harem, which is a mystery to the Western European people. And well, the reason to think about this journey was that I read a book. It actually was a bestseller all over the world. A book that was written by a begum in Lahore, which is a very important city of Pakistan. And it was a very special book because it was the first book out of the sleeping room of an Oriental woman. Normally, an Oriental woman never tells her secrets out of her bedroom. That's not in the culture of these countries. And she's a very courageous woman, she opposed against all the society rules of her country, writing this book. And her husband, with whom she shared her bedroom, was the energy minister of Benazir Bhutto. So, but beside that, you're only in politics in Pakistan when in case you are really of a very high class. Very poor people would never ever be in the parliament. So this guy was actually also the head of a big clan in Pakistan. And I really loved that book. It showed all the interior fights and the very dramatic situations of women within the house. So that made me think of looking into a harem, what kind of secrets I could discover. Because in Germany, of course, as in Europe, we don't have harems, we never had them, but of course, as the British had their colonies in those countries, a lot of talks and books appeared in the public, and they were only, of course, descriptions seen from the outside, like Lady Mountbatten did a very famous book about harem, but she never was in a harem. She always described the harem from the outside of a very wealthy colonial woman. And so I had a good reason. And of course I wanted to actually make a film about that, but started to make just research. We is a friend of mine and me, we wanted to start in India to approach this very strange, well, unknown country. And we spent a week in Delhi and then drove by train to Amritsar, which is very close to the Pakistan border. And so this is important because I came out of a Hindu country where everything is colorful, noisy, and there's a lot of traffic and movement going on in the outside. And also the Hindu religion doesn't divide men and women, or like in the Christ religion, the woman is suppressed. You only have the woman as Maria, but she's not a god. In the contrary of the Hindu religion, there you have a couple. So the woman is at the side of the man, equally meant. And this you see in a way, you see in India, you have the feeling for that it's different. And now of course, at the time, I don't know how it is today, this journey took place in '96. So we had difficulties. It wasn't that easy to cross the border from Amritsar. You took a taxi, and then you had to get out in front before the border and take your luggage, walk over the border, and take a train from there to Lahore, which is not far from there. And this was a real shock, because when we came to the city of Lahore, the people were just so, you only saw men, mostly at least, and the few women you saw had veils around, and the atmosphere was just very severe, very macho, like very, very unhappy, I thought. And we just entered our hotel, we lay down on the bed, and we thought, no, we don't like that here. It's so horrible. Where did we go to? So this means the shock. But then pretty soon we met our Begum, Temina Durrani is her name, and she introduced us to all her friends, or to at least a few friends. And being a Begum is the highest class, of course. It's like a count, or compared to in our system, aristocratic system. It's a kind of aristocratic title. And well, she was educated in Cambridge, and I found out that almost all the friends of hers, the women mostly, because I was interested in the women, not so much in the men, they all had a very good education, being this upper class women, like, well, Harvard, Yale, Cambridge. They would speak a very good English. They were very educated, as I said, and they were, which amazed me much more, they were totally self-certain and very proud of themselves in a way that you can't get by education, but that you have as a woman. That is very, it really amazed me totally, because also I thought, well, they are suppressed women in those houses. And I also have to explain that the harem is not only the castle of a sultan or a very high count. The harem actually is the house of the woman in an Oriental or Islamic country. And I found out that this is the house of the woman, and the outside, the living outside the public area is the man's world. And you don't, in those countries, you can't interfere amongst the two unless you take some care of yourself, which means the woman has to put on a veil, which means she's secure in her being, secure not to be touched by the eyes of the man, and also he's not affected by her attraction. So this is a kind of wall between the two sexes or genders, and it has a very deep meaning. And as if, like in our news, you always only see the public places, and of course men are wild there, and sometimes they take guns and they have wars and all that. And there you don't see the quality of the women, because this happens in the house. And in those houses you have a lot of servants, because I'm talking now of high-class houses. You have a lot of servants, and in those countries where you still live a feudal life, it's all feudal, which means feudal in German, feudal, these families take care of the children of their servants, and it goes on and on. So the servants are also, in a way, very fixed to the families.
Embedded.
Yes, embedded. They are not, they are kind of slaves, we could also say. But of course they are well kept. And for example, Temina, once I saw that she took her special servant, a woman, she looked into her cupboard and said, well, this garment you can have, this can... So the slave gets the old garments of the lady. And, very interesting was, for example, that those women, they did not go to the mosque like everybody else, or at least not that much. They had a peer. A peer means they have a teacher, a Sufi teacher. You might know that in Islamic countries, especially Pakistan is such a country, there is the Sufism. At the moment I heard they try to outroot the Sufism, but that's the mystic part of the Islam. And like Tamina, she would consult her peer whenever she needed him. Like we would go to a therapist, and sometimes she would sit with him and talk to him about her life, about her spiritual side and all that. Very interesting, I found. And this also means that a woman, in being in her house, she takes care of her spirit. It's nothing that only belongs to the man, like we think sometimes of the Islam, that the woman is more or less a cow or nothing else. No? And she had 3 children. They all went to very good schools. But whenever we left the house, which was very nice and very well kept, like a European house, outside of the garden and the wall around, there would be poor people sitting in front, and they had little fires, and they would move upwards when we came in the big car and bow. So that means feudal. The poor people, they accept the high people, and it's like a caste almost, like in India, but of course different at the same time. But it's not democratic, it's not at all, and that's also one part of the difficulties, the political difficulties of Pakistan or Afghanistan. You have the big tribes, you have the big landlords, and the poor people, nothing. And what was really amazing for me was that, which I already mentioned, that the women there are very proud of being a woman. They are very female, and they told me that they would never like to change or to become like a Western woman, because they think we are castrated women, and they have everything. They would never like to be like us, and I think they have a point there. Of course, still, I wouldn't like to change with them either. But that's a more complicated thing to explain. We had the Aufgenommen and a lot of advantages that I like to have, but I could see their point. And by the way, they all worked, those women at least, they worked on their computer doing, working with, what you call, with exchange, what is it?
Wall Street, financial transactions.
Financial thing.
Yeah.
They all did bargaining and business. They were really involved in making money.
Stock exchange.
Yes, with making money in any sense, not even with the stock exchange, but with a lot of stuff. They were moving and doing things, but also they were really queens. And the most powerful being in the large family, we would say Großfamilie in German, in the clan, is the old woman. Yeah. She is really the upper side, and the son of her, he would have to obey her. So if you marry a man there, you marry his mother, and she will tell him what to do. So that is not really a martyr card. You would not call that, but it's the power behind. It's the family power.